That's why we see what the hell we see with regard to very popular bills not getting passed. And we literally experienced this. During the Obama administration, Congress attempted to pass the American Clean Energy and Securities Act, which would have set new renewable fuel standards and established a cap and trade system for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. However, the proposal was never even brought to a vote in the Senate. Why? Because they simply did not have the 60 votes. They didn't have the 60 votes to even vote on it. The filibuster. They need those 60 votes to overcome the invisible filibuster. That's actually still a real filibuster. That they don't actually have to do the actual work of filibustering. They just have to threaten that they're filibustering. At the time, Barbara Boxer, who was one of the heads of these committees, said, quote, dropping the threshold to 51 would have completely changed the political dynamics and greatly enhanced the probability of victory, end quote. Y'all remember the public option for Obamacare? Do you remember when he first started promoting the Affordable Care Act? Originally, remember, it was supposed to have a public option, right? In the marketplace, you could go there and pay. You can buy private insurance, or there was going to be a public option, a free/low cost option for the public, which basically would have eliminated uninsured people. It would have eliminated it. We still have so many people who are uninsured. But he wanted to add that public option. Remember? And everybody was freaking happy about that. Everybody wanted that. I'm sure there were some people who didn't and were like, how are we going to pay for it? Blah, blah, blah. Y'all never say that about the military budget, though. And what happened? The Republicans killed it. Why? How? Using the filibuster. The Democrats didn't even bring it up for a vote. They took it off of the table altogether because they knew they didn't have the 60 vote filibuster threshold. That was in 2009. Can you imagine if we had had an actual public option when the Affordable Care Act was passed? Think about it. Obamacare has done great things since it's been passed. I mean, I don't know how many millions of people who were uninsured are now insured and covered. And then, you know, the 20 being the threshold of being on your parents' insurance being raised up to 26. That was huge. I didn't get that. That was huge. And all the other things that Obamacare did, right? Like, imagine if we had also had the public option. What was that? 2019, that's 15 years ago. Imagine we would have had free healthcare available to any and everybody in this country for the last 15 years. What would the world look like today? What would this country look like today if we had had 15 years of free healthcare available to the people? If there was no filibuster and Obama could have actually passed the public option along with the whole entire Affordable Care Act. I mean, the landscape of this country, I mean, what would that have been? Imagine what COVID would have been like with that public option. Man. At the time, Democratic Senator Tom Harkin, who was the chairman of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee, said, quote, there are comfortably 51 votes for a public option, end quote. So if we hadn't had this filibuster, this 3/5 majority needed to even vote on the legislation, if we didn't have this filibuster, we would have had the public option. We would be 15 years deep into having a free public option for Medicare. Basically, Medicare for all. Gun violence. In 2013, 2015, and in 2019, a bipartisan bill to expand background checks for gun purchases failed to meet the 60 vote threshold. Gun safety legislation have been supported by a majority in both chambers at various times, but it never had a filibuster-proof supermajority in the Senate. And that's the thing. You have to have a supermajority, not just a regular majority. You have to have 3/5 of a majority. 3/5. You need 60 people out of 100 to agree in the Senate to even bring something to a vote. 64% of Americans support stricter gun laws in general. So if we translate that to the filibuster-proof supermajority, if everybody was equally represented in the Senate, then we would easily surpass the 60 threshold. But that's where the Senate is messy. It's not equal representation. And because of that, Congress has not passed a significant gun violence prevention bill since the early 1990s. The 1990s. In the early Columbine happened in the late 90s. So it's so crazy that the last time we passed any serious gun control bills was in the early 90s, and Columbine happened in the late 90s. And so many tragedies happened after that, and we never passed any kind of gun reform. Why? Not because the American people don't support it, not because the American people don't want gun reform, but because a minority group of senators in the Senate have the power of the filibuster and can prevent legislation from being even voted on by using the filibuster, not actually using it, but just threatening to use it through their vote. And you only need 41 of them to ruin it.